Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're back for another edition of the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast. I'm your host, Eric Stenholm, along with my co-host, Joey Moore. Not going to be a very positive podcast on my end. It was a disastrous end of the Vikings season on Sunday Night Football. But we're a positive group here, so we're going to start with the Niners clinching of the NFC's number one seed. Huge win for the Niners at Washington, but more importantly, a gigantic earth-shattering loss for Philly against Arizona last week. And now the Niners are the number one seed, and they can rest up for basically 2 full weeks as they prep for their divisional round matchup. Feels pretty good, right?
Yep, it was a big Sunday. Like I said, we took the bus. We took the bus Sunday, both in Washington and in Philadelphia. Go Cards. It was a little dicey in the first half. I mean, you kind of like hear all week how this is a get right game, and then it's just like offense was good, and I thought defense was okay, but just all of a sudden it's 10-10. Good drive to end the first half to get 3 points. Couldn't put in the end zone on goal to go, but it was 13-10, and then I actually heard Steve Wilks made some pretty good adjustments at halftime, according to I think it was Charvarius Ward who had a pick in the second half. They said they were playing a lot of man coverage in the first half and were getting beat, and they made a lot of man coverage look like zone coverage in the second half, and then Sam Howell started turning the ball over, which I was like, for kind of wanting Steve Wilks fired midway through the year, I was like, that's good to hear. Like, like to see some adjustments. But yeah.
That's Pro Bowl starter Charvarius Ward.
I mean, some Niner fans I see on some blogs think he's an all-pro, which I don't know if I go that far. But he's been pretty good. He's by far
second
the best
team, maybe second team.
By far the best one they got. And I mean, Purdy threw some absolute just dimes in the second half. He had that scramble in the pocket touchdown throw to Ayuk, which is not uncommon for him. He does that quite a bit. I think
not straight line fast, but he really moves around in the pocket well.
I don't know. It's the shuttle time. The combine, I think, was only like 1/100th of a second off of like Christian McCaffrey, or it was either him or Lamar Jackson. It might have been Lamar Jackson. The shuttle time, not the speed time.
Right. He's not fast, but he's quick.
And like, who cares? Like, nobody wants running quarterbacks. Just like people get that kind of, I think, misunderstood. Like, no one wants a running quarterback. That's why they think Lamar Jackson this year is better this year before the one he was in MVP in 2019. Like, he's much better from the pocket.
Yes.
Like, they don't want to run all over the place because it's not consistently, proven to win a lot. Like Mahomes, like, is he a running quarterback? I don't think he is. He's mobile. They want him to evade pressure and throw the ball.
It's not sustainable like your boy Kaepernick back in the day. You can pull it off maybe 1 or 2 years, but you can't really do it for.
I mean, if a guy like Kaepernick threw like Drew Brees in the pocket, he'd be the most unstoppable player. But that I haven't seen it. I mean, the closest one we've kind of seen has been Mahomes, but he's a lot more passer than he is like runner.
Oh, by a mile. Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll see with a couple other guys, like Lamar. Michael Vick was pretty good, but he never.
He threw the ball hard, but not very accurate.
He had a hose.
Both him and Kaepernick probably threw the fastest football I've ever seen in the NFL. Like, just an absolute laser.
Kaepernick's looked violent. Like, it looked, because his windup too, it looked like.
Yeah. It was like a 2-seam fastball at like 96.
Like some baseball pitchers who throw like high 90s, low hundreds, and it looks like a tennis serve where they even got like an oomph at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's guys like Verlander who just wind up and it's just straight gas out of the hand, and it doesn't even look like he's working that hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's not some of these guys.
But back to the point, Niners number one seed after the Baltimore loss. Basically, everything is right with the team again. Basically, from when the Washington game ended until when your divisional round game starts, that's like 21 days to rest up.
I got to be honest, I'm not in love with that. I'm not
really.
Like, trust me, I wanted the 1 seed, but I wanted the 1 seed not for the bye. I wanted that for everything to be at Levi's.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a huge fan, like it's because it's like this game Sunday is just, we've already announced both Niners and Rams. This is just going to be a preseason game.
Yeah.
So, like,
good thing for you is, though, you may get to avoid the Rams if you give them the W in that game. You know, if you basically
are we though? Like they said today, they're sitting Stafford, Cup, Kyron Will, like you're sitting everybody.
Yeah.
And
I mean, but either way, I mean, if they're
we said we're sitting, I saw we're sitting Purdy and McCaffrey.
I mean, you would think
like Sam Darnold's going to treat this as his Super Bowl. Like he's playing for a contract.
I was wondering if they'd even start Darnold, given he may have to come in a playoff game. I was wondering if they go to the third string.
I don't know. I mean, maybe they each get a half.
As of right now, the Niners are favored by 3, which I thought was pretty shocking. And then I saw what you saw. Basically, Sean McVay said, "Yeah, anyone who's ever been good at football."
I don't know how they even come up with a line for this game.
It's the most challenging week of the NFL season to figure out what to make the lines. They do have the Niners -3, but we don't give a good goddamn about that game. It's all about, you know, in 2 weeks, who are you going to play? You're going to play whoever the lowest remaining seed in the NFC is. We'll talk about that bracket a bunch more next week because a lot still has to be sorted out. One team that we're sure is not going to be there is the Minnesota Vikings. There is still a snowball's chance in hell. They need a win, a Packers loss, a Seahawks loss, and then either a Tampa or New Orleans loss. And then they're in. So that's all it is, just a typical 4-team parlay. So you're telling me there's a chance.
I don't think that's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
First of all, the Vikings are 3-point dogs on the road at Detroit. The problem here is Detroit still technically has a chance at the number 2 seed if they win and both Dallas and Philly lose. But they put this game at 10 a.m. before Dallas and Philly both play. So Detroit, at least for the first half, is definitely going to be playing everybody, which makes it even harder. The Vikings just announced Mullins will start today. Basically, we need a miracle. Looking at this game, I don't think we're going to win. I think this team has kind of mailed it in, as we saw last Sunday night with just, I mean, one of the worst efforts in primetime in Viking history. From the jump, it was clear that the team was not motivated to play. I was shocked at how bad Jaren Hall was, given that in his 2 drives against Atlanta, he looked probably like the best non-Cousins quarterback of the season for the Vikings, and then got concussed. He comes back into this game. I was calling for Mullins almost immediately, and I hate Nick Mullins. I was like, this is just, I mean,
the broadcast was too.
It was pretty shocking. And I remember looking at the live odds on Bovada during the game, and they pulled Hall off the board after the second drive and put Mullins' name in for passing yards. And I was like, they haven't even announced that he's been pulled yet. Everyone in America was like, they got to get this guy out of here. It was shockingly bad. They are going back to Mullins next week. I don't really think it matters. I just think all that needs to be said is this is a disaster of a season. Like, you lost a chance to kind of evaluate a lot of the guys on this team when Cousins went down. We needed to see who were winning players in big moments, and we never got to see it because we were never at full strength. You're not going to be picking high in the draft. You're going to be picking somewhere in the 14 to 16 range, which hurts for a season where you're not making the playoffs. Big lost opportunity. We'll get to it more next week after the final nail is delivered into the coffin. But I really think Cousins is coming back, and I think this is a team that really has no choice but to tread water for the foreseeable future. Tough Sunday night game where basically there was just an F- effort from the team from the get-go, and it's really been a disappointing second half of the season from the Vikes after that 5-game win streak that got us all excited. So maybe we find a way to sneak in as the 7 seed, but I don't see that happening. Tough season. We'll talk about off-season plans next week. Let's get into the Week 18 slate, the hardest week in the NFL to predict what's going on. But let's just kind of give status reports on each of these teams as we head into the playoffs. Saturday starts with Pittsburgh -3.5 at Baltimore. The Steelers need a win and either a Jags or Bills loss, and they're in. The Steelers are favored in this game because they're starting everybody, and Baltimore's already announced Lamar, and a lot of the big players on that team are not going to be playing. It's pretty shocking to me that it's still a possibility that if the Steelers win and the Bills lose, the Bills are out of the playoffs altogether, and a Bills win would give them the 2 seed. Like, really high stakes for the Bills after a wild season. For this Saturday game, is it a shock to you that Pittsburgh is still alive? Because it kind of is to me.
Yeah, it is.
It's just a bad team, right?
I don't think they're that bad of a team. I think they went wrong. I think they wasted the season starting Mitch Trubisky over Mason Rudolph, apparently.
Yeah, for what, 5 weeks?
Yeah. I mean, they look much better with him. But yeah, you were just talking and explaining everything about the game. I'm just like, yeah, week 18 does suck. I mean, just like I was thinking about it. It's the last weekend of like a last Sunday of football, like and it's like it's about to feel like week 5 of the preseason. That's what it's about to feel like.
Because only half the teams are trying.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Steelers, I don't know. There's rumblings like Mike Tomlin might be like, I feel like kind of on the hot seat a little bit just because it feels stale a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, we might not have a losing season. Yeah, it's like, but we're perennially finishing 8-8, 9-8 every year, like not doing anything, and they just feel like they haven't fixed the offense quarterback position like in since Ben Roethlisberger. I don't know. I just they're gonna try. They're gonna try hard to keep Mike Tomlin's 500 record above 500 record intact. But yeah, it'll be interesting.
The reason that we do like week 18 though is because of games like the other one on Saturday night. Houston pick'em at Indy. Winner is in, loser basically needs a miracle. I believe there is a scenario where if Houston loses and 4 or 5 other teams also lose, they still make it. But basically, it's a win, you're in, lose, you're out game. Obviously, we like C.J. Stroud and D'Amico Ryans on this podcast, and the offense that's reminiscent of the Niner offense that's run over there. I really want to pick Houston in this spot, but Indy has been better in the last couple weeks after really having 3 duds in a row. These are the kind of games that you love to watch. It's 2 teams that nobody really cares about in the long term, but essentially a playoff game in week 18. This is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I want to root for. I've been high on obviously D'Amico and CJ Stroud all season, but I don't know why. I'm kind of leaning the Colts here.
You're a Steichen guy now too.
But Shane Steichen is looking better and better each week. Jalen Hurts looks like ass. Like, I mean, Jonathan Gannon just went in there and kicked their ass. I mean, the Arizona Cardinals. I don't want to make this about that game and talk about the Colts, but Arizona did not punt.
28 points on 4 drives in the second half.
Like, just the coordinator. So offensively, Shane Steichen, and I totally forgot he was the guy that got Herbert, his rookie, just unreal rookie campaign. Mm-hmm. So he's gone from Justin Herbert, made Jalen Hurts an All-Pro, and now has taken Anthony Richardson, who was deemed like the biggest project we've seen in a while. He looked good. He just kept getting knocked out of games. Mm-hmm. And then Gardner Minshew's like solid guy, and Shane Steichen is, I mean,
he's got a C- quarterback on the doorstep of the playoffs.
Sucks.
Yeah.
The Colts roster sucks.
Even their best players like Quentin Nelson have dropped off.
I guess my point, both I think great head coaches. I'm not gonna say great. They got to do it longer, but like arrow pointing straight up for both D'Amico and Shane Steichen. And I just feel like the Colts being at home, Texans, I don't know. I just feel like there's something up with the Colts.
Yeah, I lean Houston because of the quarterback, but like you said, the coaching advantage might be there with Indy with the way Steichen's been coaching this team. They were a little shaky in that fourth quarter against the Raiders last week in Indy, but this is a great one on Saturday night. Let's take a look at Sunday's games. Let's look at the ones that matter first. You got Tampa Bay -4 at Carolina. It's a win and you're in for Tampa Bay. Obviously, we got a lot to talk about with Carolina and that group yet again later in the pod. But
keep pounding.
Yeah, keep pounding. Freaking Mike Tolbert hit that keep pounding drum and broke it a couple weeks ago. If that's not the most Panthers thing you've seen all year, that's pretty wild.
What, though? If I was doing that, I wouldn't do it because I'm not built different, but I would. I'd be like, I'm gonna break this thing. I'm gonna hit this thing so hard. I'm gonna try and break it. I'm gonna put the hammer right through the logo or something.
And they're 2-14 heading into week 17, an
They
absolute
feel
shambles.
worse. They feel
And
worse than 2 or 14.
They're the first team ever, including the 0-16 Lions, the 0-16 Browns, and the 0-14 Tampa Bay Bucks from back in the day. First team ever to have never had a lead in the fourth quarter. The only times they've ever had leads have been in overtime.
Oh, yeah.
It's really unbelievable. One of the worst teams in the history of the NFL at this point. They'll be looking for a new coach and maybe even a new quarterback here shortly. But we're talking about teams that are trying to make the playoffs. Tampa's -4 at Carolina. If they win, they're in. New Orleans is -3 at home against Atlanta. The winner of that game needs a Tampa Bay loss to get in. So basically, Tampa holds the cards here, but we were on them last week. I saw that 91% of bets at sportsbooks last week were on Tampa Bay -2.5, and they got absolutely walloped by New Orleans. What a trash division. We can never figure this goddamn thing out.
Yeah, that was that was a stunner because I think the Saints have just been one of the most underperforming teams this year, and I believe Tampa was it was in Tampa too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I don't know what to make of it. I think Tampa should win. I mean, they really should win, and just kind of wrap this up. And I'm also going to assume welcome Philly to Tampa for the wild card. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're the most talented team I think in the division, which is crazy because most people had them in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes before the season, but.
Yeah, their preseason over-under on wins was 4.5, and they're already at 8. So good on them, I guess. But a real trash division. I don't really look at either of those games as ones that I have a lot of conviction on. If I had to bet one, I'd probably bet Tampa Bay -4. There's no way I want a part of the Atlanta New Orleans game. Those are two teams that are just up and down, mostly down. Another game that, I mean, this is a stunner that this game even matters. Jacksonville's favored by 4.5 at Tennessee. It's winning in for Jacksonville. This is a C- season for them if they make the playoffs. If they lose this game, it is an F. I mean, an absolute disaster here.
So if they win the division.
Correct. There is no scenario where they make the playoffs. There is only a scenario where they win the division. If they win, they are the 4 seed and will host Cleveland.
So whoever wins the other game Saturday,
they are in as a wild card if they
won.
Yeah. The winner of the Saturday game will be in regardless. They will win the division if Jacksonville lose, or they will be the 7 seed if Jacksonville wins. So that's why they put that game on Saturday. It's kind of like last year with the Titans-Jags game that was on Saturday night with Buck and Aikman last year, where Josh Dobbs
I thought
got
that one
start.
was like winners in the division and losers toast. That's what I thought the Texans-Colts was.
Well, the Jags own the tiebreaker over both, unfortunately. But, I mean, this is, like I was saying, a team that I think a lot of people before the season had them as maybe the 3 or even the 2 seed. They had Lawrence. Lawrence was the 6th favorite to win the MVP before the season. And as you said a couple weeks ago, he's probably in the high 20s. If you were to power rank quarterbacks right now, 21, 22, somewhere around.
If you were to unemotionally go by actual real football film and data, he's in the high 20s.
Yeah,
maybe if you're on generous low teens, like it just bothers it. I don't want to get on a tangent, but yeah.
They have to win that one. Tennessee is they'll be starting Tannehill as Levis got hurt again. I don't really have a ton of conviction on that game at all. And then you have some games that we'll just breeze through here that are in the 10 a.m. window that don't matter. Cleveland is locked into the 5 seed. They're at Cincy Cincy's favored by 7. Cleveland's, as I said, locked into the 5th spot. They look live to win the AFC. They're benching everybody in this game because they already know what seed they are. Flacco's story's been great. They're resting Njoku and Cooper and all their, studs, Myles Garrett. You said last week you love Cleveland going into the playoffs, and it sure looks like they're going to face probably Jacksonville, maybe Houston or Indy. You got to love them in that game coming up.
Cleveland?
Yeah.
I'd take Cleveland against anybody in the AFC right now. And if I really had the gonads, I would pick them to make the Super Bowl. But
I don't think they can beat Baltimore in Baltimore, but I think they can win against basically anybody else in that conference right now, including Kansas City.
If Cleveland doesn't beat Baltimore, then Baltimore is like I don't think anyone else can beat Baltimore.
I agree. I think Buffalo at their best maybe could, but they're too inconsistent. There's no way you could see that. And as we saw last week with Miami,
if Buffalo wins, gets the 2 seed, like I don't know if that means they're hot. They'd have to be hot. And like if Buffalo's hot, like they're a very dangerous team. But they're just the problem is they'll get hot and then something happens and they turn into like just a glacial freeze, and it's just like what happened. But
you start to see some chirping on the sideline, and you're like, "Oh boy, here we go again." Jets at New England. New England's favored by 1.5. Meaningless game. Could be Belichick's finale, although there have been some reports that he is coming back. So crazy situation there, where probably the greatest coach in the history of the NFL is like in limbo as to whether he's coming back. I think he should just retire, but clearly that's not going to happen. He wants that wins record. Let's go into some games that matter. They pushed almost all of them to the 1:25 Pacific window, starting with Chicago at Green Bay. It's a win and in for the Packers. Just looked at the weather. The weather's going to be a factor there. It's going to be in the teens. There could be some snow. There could be some wind. I've really been impressed by Chicago the last like 5 or 6 weeks, especially by Justin Fields. We said it last week. He's actually been really good. This is the only game that gives me a little teensy bit of hope that the Vikings could still sneak in, because I think Chicago's live for this game. I wanted to put Green Bay in my picks of the week at -3, but I'm really starting to think against that. Green Bay was very good against an unmotivated Vikings team in a dome last week, but I think with the ground and pound Bears coming to town, I think there's a real shot the Bears win this one.
I can't believe it, but yeah, I actually think there is a conversation for both the head coach and quarterback in Chicago to remain there. I think Justin Fields has gotten better, played better. I still don't love him as my quarterback, but hey, he's gotten better, which I hadn't seen in his first 3 years. Like it looks. Earlier this year he just like. Was that when he kind of threw the coaches under the bus?
Yeah, that was like
when he was
3.
like, I forgot what he said, but it was like, I just can't do that. When it was like they were telling me where exactly to throw, and it's like I can't play free or something. Mm-hmm. So he's like saying the coaching, and I'm like,
yeah, they're telling you like
where to throw because they don't think you can recognize where to throw the ball. And then Matt Eberflus is defensive guy. Chicago's defense is pretty good, especially against the run. Mm-hmm. Which if it's freezing cold weather, inclement weather, might be running the ball game.
Do we remember how last year ended with Green Bay in a win and in game in weather at night?
I think this
home.
Is so different. Number one, they were playing the badass Dan Campbell Detroit Lions, and number two, I just think that we being a vibes podcast, the vibes in Green Bay towards the end were just. Although I think Green Bay kind of went on a winning streak the end of the year. They might have snapped in that game, but I don't know. I think if the Packers win, I think they're a team I would not want to play, just because I feel like them making the playoffs this year was kind of like ahead of schedule.
Yeah,
a bit.
They're by far the youngest team in the NFL, especially on offense.
I'm trying to think if they win, they'd be the 7, right?
They would actually move to the 6 if you were to beat the Rams.
Oh.
So, yeah, then it would be a situation
Detroit
where
Packers would be like Thanksgiving.
And then you'd have Rams at Cowboys, which would be a pretty damn good one.
Oh, my God. If I was Mike McCarthy, I would not want to see Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. And
it's
and
funny.
Williams.
You'd rather be Tampa Bay.
Team who can't stop the run. See Kyron Williams. And, oh, my God.
A lot of ramifications in that one. We're both thinking Chicago will be live in that game. I don't know if they pull off the upset. Seattle's -2.5 at Arizona. Again, I was shocked that the line is 2.5. I thought it would be like 6, but obviously Arizona was really good on the road in Philly last week and won that game. Seattle was just an absolute dud at home against Pittsburgh. But I still thought Seattle would be favored here, given that if they win, all they need is one other result to go their way to win the division. I lean Seattle here big time. It's going to be in one of my picks later. I think this is kind of a statement game for Pete Carroll. If he's going to go out, he can't go out, losing on the road to a 4-win team with a playoff spot on the line. So I like Seattle just as a legacy factor, just a coach who's always buttoned up. I think Seattle's a good spot in that game. Arizona had their Super Bowl last week. And I frankly think they probably shouldn't even be starting Kyler Murray in these games, given that there's no reason to keep winning. It's just tanking their draft stock even further. Let's look at the Dallas and Philly games. Obviously, I want to talk a lot about Philly here. We'll talk about the Dallas-Detroit game later on in the pod, but Dallas is favored by 13 at Washington. Philly's favored by 4.5 at the Giants. Philly blew that 10-1 start. Dallas now controls the division. All they got to do is win as 13-point favorites at Washington. Philly is, in my opinion, already kind of DOA for the playoffs. I don't think anyone in America thinks they can win 3 playoff games, much less 2, much less 1. I think they'll be slight favorites at Tampa or New Orleans, whoever they end up playing. But we were going to make the point later in the pod about Philly. Let's talk a little bit about Dallas here. Are you worried as a Niner fan if they win this game and they're the 2 seed that they're a team that could come into Levi's and possibly win in the NFC Championship game? Or is there, are you truly more worried about like teams like the Rams and
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So you're just mostly because of the result in the first matchup with Dallas?
No, I think the Rams is crazy. As much as we've kind of had their number last like 4 or 5 years, other than that big one that mattered, like those games are close. Like there are a lot of 3-point, like it's tough. Like nobody knows each other better than Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. They run the same scheme. They run the same plays. And Matthew Stafford looks phenomenal. I'd rather play Dak Prescott than Matthew Stafford right now.
Mm-hmm.
And CeeDee Lamb is having an all-pro season, but the Rams can really freaking run the football with Kyron Williams.
Out of nowhere.
Tony Pollard is like, where the hell is Zeke? Like Dallas can't run the ball very well. Dak's playing really well, but Dak, again, like I said last week, Dak outside of the Jerry world is Desmond Ridder. Like, no, and Dallas just does not do well what you have to do well against the Niners, and that is stop the run and control the middle of the field.
So then thinking about this on another level, as a Niner fan who obviously there's lots of rooting interest in all these games for you, do you want Philly to win and Dallas to lose so that Philly's the 2 seed? Going into these games, what are you thinking?
No, not really. I don't think it really matters. Because the more I think about it, I think I said it last week. I would not want to play the Rams. And shockingly, I saw today Fred Warner got his podcast with his wife, and he said he would not want to play the Rams. Like not that way, because I don't think a player would ever say, "Oh, I don't want to play that team."
Mm-hmm.
But like he thinks they're like the most dangerous team in the NFC. Like, yeah, the more I look at it, like I don't see how they don't play the Rams. Like,
unless Detroit beats them in the first round, or
which
Dallas
is very
beats them in the
possible.
first round,
But I think the Rams are better than both Dallas and Detroit. And the thing is that like Detroit, I'm sure will be jacked, for a home playoff game. Like Dallas is not an intimidating place to play. At least I don't think so. It only is because of the team.
Mm-hmm.
But like those fans, can you imagine if kickoff Rams at Dallas, like in the playoffs, and Dallas gets the opening kick, goes 3 and out, and then Sean McVay and Stafford shove it right down their throat, and it's 7-0. How many butts are going to be so tight in that, including on the field and in the stands?
Yeah, McCarthy's will be.
The thing is, they both play in domes, and like for a guy like Stafford and a team like the Rams, like that's not intimidating. It helps. It's not like you're going to Green Bay. Even Levi's outdoor. The wind out here gets a little weird. Mm-hmm. Like it can rain. Like it rained during the Seattle. Like you never know. But I do know, I'm not an architect guy, but I do know when there's a dome, there's no weather.
When you got a dome here,
yeah,
there's not going to be any weather in there.
When you have a surface that blocks the weather, and if they're the 6 or 7 seed, I mean, unless the only way they don't play the Rams, because I'm thinking the Rams win. The only way they don't play them is if like they get the 6th seed and then somehow the Packers beat Dallas, which, oh my God.
No, that would just be, that'd probably be it for McCarthy and Dallas.
He loses his former team.
That would be insane. Okay, so there's a couple other games with no implications, and then we'll get to the big one. Denver at the Raiders. Denver officially eliminated last week after Pittsburgh's win, and Kansas City's win as well. The Raiders are favored by 2.5. I wanted to ask you, do you think Pierce is coming back? Because teammates, not just Devontae Adams, all of his teammates on the Raiders came out today and said they want Pierce back. He's been a little more than a little shaky last week after the big win at Kansas City. He was getting roundly criticized by Raiders Twitter last week for that game at Indy. Do you think Pierce comes back, and do you think he should come back?
That's a good question. My thinking is like he should be back, but I don't know if he's like the answer.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
especially if Harbaugh comes knocking.
Well, I would absolutely not hire Jim Harbaugh. Like, no
that's
chance.
Supposedly the one team that he would
like. I don't mean that Raiders. I mean anybody. Like, and I think Jim Harbaugh, obviously, like he seems to ruffle feathers everywhere he goes, which is, I'm sure, not fun to be around. But like, I don't think as smiley of a guy as he kind of be sometimes, McVay. I'm sure McVay's a nut job midweek going over like, you're a tough coach, like you win, like you're kind of a dick throughout the week, like trying to, like, you're happy if you, like, Bill Belichick is an ass, I'm sure, but like he wins. If you want a guy like that, you know, like Harbaugh, I just don't think the Raiders need like to find a Raider identity. Like they've tried to hire like Josh McDaniels, like all this Patriot, like it comes with Jim Harbaugh is like a celebrity coming. The Raiders need, you know, to no different than like develop players on a roster. They need like their coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of teams do, like the Texans, you know, they hired D'Amico, who had been a Texan. Like, you don't have to play for the team, but, you know, like clearly like a fresh start. Like we have our own culture. Same thing with the Colts with Steichen, like all these guys. You hire a McDaniel, even like Sean Payton, like you hire Sean Payton, he becomes your entire thing. And like that might work. But if it doesn't, it royally just blows for everybody. Like, because you hire McDaniels as the Raiders. Well, as soon as you fire him, like everything that happened. Okay, goodbye, Brian Hoyer. Bye, Jimmy. Goodbye, all the the GM. Goodbye, everyone who had any like ties to him. If you have your own guy, you know,
they need their new Gruden. Like they hired Gruden in 1998 when he was like 35. Gruden. Yeah. They tried to with Lane Kiffin back in the day. They tried with Josh McDaniels. They tried with all these guys.
So I think Antonio Pierce could be that guy. Have I seen enough like schematically? I think that's just one thing. It's just, you know, we're eventually talking about the Eagles. Like kind of, it's just kind of been like, okay, Sirianni, like you're the head. Like, what do you do? Like you have to, when you play a really good coach, like a Shanahan, like a McVay, like they schematically X's and O's like will kill you. Like, you have to, like, what is your thing? Like, what do you do?
The classic question we have.
And like, I don't know about Antonio Pierce enough yet, but I do know players loving him is a big deal. I think the team, when I've watched them since they taken over this season, has looked, I mean, they kicked the Chiefs' ass on Chris. I was like, I've never seen this. Like, just as a, you know, third party guy watching the Raiders, you know, they just, so.
Maybe he can be that motivational guy.
My thing is like, I don't want to say like, oh, he's a bridge guy, because I just don't think that's fair to him. Like, oh, I'd bring him back for like a year. Like, why would he want that job? You know? But he deserves a shot.
I think he does too. I think last week's game at Indy was a bit of a clunker, but after you saw the way that team played for him after McDaniels got fired, and then going into that Chiefs game, you're like, okay, he's a master motivator. He just needs a really schematically sound OC, you know, to kind of handle.
Because I assume he's more of like a defensive guy.
Yeah, he definitely is. And that defense was awful once he when he took over, and now they've been really impressive. I mean, they held the Chiefs to 14 points a couple weeks ago, and they held Indy to, I believe, only 17 offensive points last week. So pretty good performance by him in these last few games as the interim coach. We'll see if he gets the full-time job. KC at the Chargers. The Chargers are favored by 3.5. Reed came out today and said they're benching everybody. So it's going to be Easton Stick versus Blaine Gabbert, and a wonderful matchup there. Kansas City's locked into the 3 seed. Their only options for who they could play would be Miami if Miami loses to Buffalo, or I believe it's the winner of the Houston versus Indy game if Buffalo loses to Miami. So if you're Kansas City, do you kind of want Miami, given that you already beat them pretty easily earlier?
Yeah, I would.
That's what I was thinking too.
That's crazy. They get the 3 seed and because I think those are not the worst matchups for them.
It's the second round matchup that sucks for them.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be what, at Miami or at Buffalo?
Yeah, and both of those would be a no-go.
But even at Miami, I don't know.
Again, we love McDaniel, but they've been so sus the second half of the season.
They just get rolled by good teams.
And they barely squeaked by Dallas and kind of got there with the help of a couple calls too. So haven't really seen anything from Miami in the past 6 weeks to indicate that they're going to go on a run in the playoffs, which is why I was saying Kansas City might want them in the first round. Let's talk about the Sunday night game. Buffalo, they're favored by 3.5 at Miami in this game, which I am going to bet Miami. I already have bet Miami plus 3.5. I'm going to put them in the picks of the week. That's probably my favorite one of the week. The offense is too good for them to just get completely rolled at home, I think. They are saying Mostert is going to play. They are saying Achan's going to play. Obviously, Tua's there. Tyreek, terrible situation today with his freaking house burning down, but he is going to play. Yeah, that was
who orchestrated that?
Very strange. The vibes are strange in Miami right now, but again, this is a team that 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were all but certain they were going to be the 1 or the 2 seed. Now they're just playing for the opportunity to host a playoff game. I like them in this spot with their backs against the wall. You've been waffling back and forth on Buffalo all season. This is a tremendous game. If you had to pick a side on this one at Buffalo minus 3.5, where would you go?
It's crazy because we've actually talked and you've kind of make me lean the other way. But before this, I would have hammered Buffalo. I think Miami is a wounded duck right now.
Okay, and that explains the line.
And I always use the boxers analogy to describe Buffalo. If they knock you out, they knock you out. In a game, and if they don't, they struggle to win these close games.
Mm-hmm.
I also use that same analogy, for how the other teams in the AFC towards Buffalo. I feel like Buffalo was dead in the water 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, they beat Kansas City. They beat New England. They beat a couple of these other teams. And it's no one knocked them out.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a month ago, they would have killed for this opportunity to have in Miami to win to go from weren't they the 10 seed a month ago?
Yeah, to the 2.
And again, I love Mike McDaniel. I think their offense is very ain't no freaking way. I'm taking Tua over Josh Allen.
Josh Allen, who leads the league in turnovers.
He does.
I'm trying to zag here. Everyone in the world wants to bet Buffalo here because they have all the momentum. Miami's injured, by the way. Bradley Chubb tore his ACL.
That's the other thing too. It's they're missing both of their edge rushers.
Which is how are you going to get press? See, now I'm getting a little worried here because this is what they used to call the rat line. Clearly they're trying to get everyone to bet on Miami. If they made this Buffalo -1, everyone in the world would bet Buffalo. That's why they made the line so high. But I just think this is a spot where you zag where, first of all, they're at home. They put up, I think it's something like 32 points a game at home. I think they'll get close to that. Now, the question is, can the defense limit Allen? I don't know if they can limit him, but I think they can turn him over a couple times. I do like Miami there. We'll see if that makes the cut on the You Like That picks of the week for our final edition of the regular season. Let's go to America's favorite segment, Joey's Jack and the Bum of the Week. I really want to just kind of do a deep dive into all of these candidates because this is a banner week for me. This is one of the best Jack in the Bum of the weeks of all time. We're going to start with Brad Allen. You said you have a different take here. I think that whole situation with Saturday night's game against Detroit, where 68 reported as eligible allegedly, and Brad Allen didn't hear it, didn't call it, and then called the penalty. I mean, I put him on this list because if you know a referee's first and last name, you did something majorly wrong. But you had another take on it.
First off, I think he made a mistake. I'll say that. I think he made a mistake, but I don't think he made as big of a mistake. I mean, it's a humongously bad mistake, the impact of the game. Like, I don't want to mischaracterize that, but when you watch it, and they admitted to it, I believe, Detroit tried to trick Dallas with who was reporting. Like, when you look at the read, they're like, oh, 68 Decker, he reported. Mm-hmm. It looks like 3 big offensive linemen report at the same time, and only one can report. So, like, the problem is, like, with this trying to trick, you tricked the ref, like, which he should not be tricked. And again, I know Detroit kind of pushed back today because I saw the league memo came out yesterday about, like, it's on the player. And, like, I think it is. Like, if you report, like, you have to make sure the ref has a million jobs. This is a play that happens once or twice a game, if that, where like, here comes 7 offensive linemen. The guard's going to whatever it is. Like, I don't know. You just have to make sure the ref hears it. I just don't. Why is Penei Sewell over there? It was Penei Sewell, the skipper, the 70 who ran on the field, and then you see Goff point to Decker to go report. 3 guys go to Brad Allen at the same time, and they're all there. Probably a loud ass stadium. It's a big play. Like, what did he do? Did he go, I'm reporting? I'm 6, like, or did he just go like, hey, report? And he's like, whatever. I saw whoever. I don't know. Like, I get it.
What they had said was that 70 had been reporting the whole game on the plays where there were 6 or more offensive linemen, and he walked in the direction of Brad Allen during this play. But it was supposedly 68 who said I'm reporting. But if you look at the video, 70 is closer to Brad Allen than 68. Yeah. So again, I mean, he's taken all the flack for this. The league has stood behind him. I thought it was kind of,
do I think he messed up? Yeah, I do. But, like, I just feel like if you're Detroit and you try and do all this to trick him, because if you're like, well, you're saying 70 reporting all day, like, they set this up. You know, like, some plays you set up, like, here's the play action, and then, like, later in the game we're going to hit them with the play off the play type thing. They tried to do that with a substitution, like, oh, we're going to sub, and then here, oh, we're going to pretend like we're subbing in 70. Here comes Decker 60, and, like, well, the problem is you faked out the ref. You know,
that's a good way to look at it. I like that.
And, like, again, he made a mistake, but, like, I don't want to kill him. Like, I don't want this turning into, like, you know, the dude who missed the perfect game, like, where this guy, or like, or like, you know, the Cubs fan, like, I don't want this guy to change his name and, like, change his life because he missed this one call. Like, I get it. You know, like, I've seen worse is what I'm trying to say, you know?
Right. And the most possible key difference here would be, you know, the Lions may have gotten the 2nd seed. Now they basically can't. That they're the ones who feel aggrieved. But again, if you had your guy report very clearly, this probably wouldn't have happened. So Brad Allen was one of the nominees. Vic Fangio has to be on this
hold on.
list.
Last thing on that. I guess you can't. Well, I was going to say, like, why can't you just review? Like, if he really did, like, just count it. Like, you know, all the time they pick up flags and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you review it. Like, it'd be like, call down to Brad Allen, be like, did you hear him or not? And, like, he's got to, like, on the spot say, like,
he's got to check the, like, record. He's like wearing a wire.
They would see on replay, you know, like, they would see the guy who did report go to him. It's like, what did he go over there? Ask him how his New Year's is or what? Like, what do you think he said? I don't know.
Tough spot for Brad Allen, Dan Campbell, and the entire Lions team, with everyone pushing the blame on everybody else. That was crazy on Saturday night. It's all they talked about Saturday night and into Sunday morning.
Should have, like, just counted the touchdown just for the sheer reason, or the 2-pointer, just for the sheer reason that Mike McCarthy should have got penalized for throwing that deep ball to kill the clock.
Oh my God! Again,
I saw that, and I saw that. I'm like, I'm not even a Dallas fan. I was rooting for Dallas because it helped the Niners like get the 1 seed with Detroit losing. But I'm just like, oh my God, that was like, I just don't on what planet am I trying to understand what that was? Like I could get caught a pass if it's like 95% we're gonna catch this ball, like a screen. I mean, you hear Troy Aikman on the broadcast say like, if he would have ran the ball, this game would be over.
Exactly.
Like when they were at like the 30-yard line.
And as a guy who bet on Dallas -4.5 in that game, thanks, Mike. Really appreciate that one. Kind of reminded me of the Washington-Texas game a couple nights ago. All they had to do was knee the ball 3 times. Washington and Texas would have only had the ball down 6 at their own 10 with like 10 seconds left. But they did 3 running plays, including one where the running back got hurt and it stopped the clock and led to Texas almost winning that game. That was insane. I thought about putting Kalen DeBoer in there just for that ridiculous finish to that game. But let's go with Vic Fangio as another option here. You give up 56 points and allow Lamar Jackson to put up probably the best game we've seen from any quarterback in the last few years. 4 incompletions, 5 touchdowns, 158.3 passer rating. Fangio's defense, I get that, his pass rushers have been hurt, but you can't give up 56 and be like, I'm a playoff contender.
It's after he gets it. Oh, no. I was going to say that's after he gave up 70, but no, that was Miami to Denver.
That Miami defense is completely fallen apart. The other candidate here that I wanted to include is Matt Patricia. So he's taken over as the defensive play caller for the last 3 weeks for Philly. 4 touchdowns, no stops in the second half, giving up 28 points to the 4-12 Arizona Cardinals at home. I mean, there's a reason that he's one of the most hated men in all of New England, and because he made Nick Foles look like God himself in that Super Bowl, and now he's doing the exact same thing to basically everybody he plays with that Philly defense. An absolute bum of the week. I want to put Arthur Smith on here, a listless performance the last 2 weeks. He went.
It's like one of those guys who's just always on this list. He's like, did anything like crazy happen? No, he just got beat soundly again.
Lost 37-17. Heineke went 9 of 28 for like 70 yards, and then he benched him for Ritter. Ritter came in and threw 1 pass. It was a pick. Like that team.
It's almost like it's
disaster.
Almost, and they were a team that you thought in the offseason, maybe Lamar. Like they didn't want him. That's the crazy thing about Lamar's season, because I'm in this boat too. Like I wouldn't have paid him or traded for him because I thought I didn't think he had it in him to throw from the pocket. And also just he's hurt a lot, and the money you would have had to have paid him. Mm-hmm. So, and you would have had to trade for him and give up picks after we just watched Deshaun and Russell Wilson's deals and extensions go to just crater their team. Mm-hmm. But boy, would you rather have Lamar Jackson right now if you're Atlanta? Probably.
Or would you rather have Desmond Ritter and Taylor Heineke? Good job there, Arthur Smith and the Brain Trust.
In defense, I would have said Lamar would have been better than them. I wouldn't say maybe he's not the answer, but he would have been better than them. I would have said that then. Now it's like, Atlanta probably wins the division.
Oh my God, by a mile in that craptastic division there. And then I put Todd Bowles as the final nominee on this list just because that was a game that if Tampa wins, they win the division. They can rest everybody this week. They got a real shot to win that first game against Philly in the playoffs. And that was their worst performance of the year by far. That team came out and was just hit in the mouth immediately the entire first half. I believe they were down 20-0 at the half in a game they were favored by 3 at home. Like horrendous performance from Bowles, who's actually been pretty good on the whole this season. Him just like KOC for the Vikes last week. I don't know what happened pregame, but the team came out and had nothing to give. But you're going with, and this is again another 2-time Jack and the Bum of the week, Trevor Lawrence, Bill Belichick, and now another honoree.
Yeah, this one was pretty easy for me. This week, the Jack and the Bum of the week, costly Bum of the week, Carolina Panthers owner David Tepper, for throwing a childlike temper tantrum in the press box with all of his suits, people he works with, for getting into with a fan who, I get it. I'm sure that fan said probably some not so, wonderful things about maybe David and his family, but like, who cares, dude? You have more money than everyone in that stadium combined. Not saying money heals everything, but like, come on. And also just the team himself. He's the owner. The team sucks. His regime sucks. Everything about him, other than his bankroll, sucks about him and his team. And like, the Carolina just went from one shitty owner to another shitty owner. I mean, when you have a shitty owner in sports, like you're screwed. And he seems more like a guy who just has been successful at everything business wise and has finally entered something he can't control. Like, this is not like a stock like Apple or something. Like, it's professional sports. You're dealing with real people, real humans, and he seems real sad and mad that his Carolina Panthers are going nowhere fast.
They put up 130 yards of offense in a 26-0 loss to CJ Beathard. So obviously I understand why he's mad. He also has botched basically every hire since he's been there. First he hired Matt Rule, and that was a failure. Then he hired Frank Reich. He abandoned him after just a couple weeks. It was like, I think there was like basically a brain trust meeting at some point in the offseason where he decided they wanted that number one pick, and he trusted Frank Reich to pick, whoever they were going to take. And then he said, I like Bryce Young. Frank Reich said, I like CJ Stroud, and the owner overruled him. So he screwed the franchise with that as well. I mean, this is a guy who's basically taken, a team owned by Jerry Richardson where the fans in Carolina were like, oh, thank God we have a new owner, to they may actually prefer to have anybody else in the Carolina region own that team, because he's been a disaster from day one and acted like a child, which is, for a 70-year-old man, that's a really bad look there. So there's David Tepper, another 2-time Jack in the Bum of the Week. Let's go to my You Like That picks of the week. We went 2-3 last week. That means we're 45, 36-4 with 1 week of regular season action remaining. I want to go at least 3-2 so we can be at least 10 games over 500 for the season. We were really doing well there at the beginning. We caught a lull in the middle, and then we've picked it up a little bit here at the end. This is the hardest week of the year to handicap. Obviously, that some teams are going to try and some teams aren't. So I'm trying to just pick the teams who have a reason to put any kind of effort on the field here. I like Houston, pick them at Indianapolis just because of the whole CJ Stroud angle. This is a guy who's trying to nail down Rookie of the Year and maybe steal it from Puka Nacua. This is a guy who's trying to make the playoffs in his first year and really cement himself as the good, young, new quarterback in the NFL who's going to enter the top 5-6 QBs in the NFL here sometime soon. I like Philly -4.5 at the Giants. I watched that Giants game intently last week because I really wanted them to beat the Rams. I would have given the Vikings another out to try to make the playoffs. I'm sure you were watching that one as well. Really rooting for the Giants. I could not believe they were in that game. They were awful. They got so many incredible plays to keep them in it. A punt return touchdown, one of the worst calls I've ever seen on a pass interference. That Giants team is absolute trash. They probably should have lost by 2 touchdowns last week. I think this is a get-right game for Philly. I did have Green Bay on here, but you kind of talked me off of it. I'm going to throw Tampa Bay -4 just because, as we said, Carolina is the most dysfunctional organization in sports right now. I like Tampa there. Seattle -2.5 I'm really comfortable with just because I think Arizona had their Super Bowl last week. And then Miami +3.5. Are there any other games on the board as you look at our rundown that you say, hey, I think that's a better bet than one of the ones that you have up there? Because these really. 5 I like.
Not really. This is a terrible week.
It's so hard to find value here. So these are the 5 that I thought were the best. Here they are. Your You Like That picks of the week for week 18 in the NFL, our final picks of the regular season. We like Houston, pick them at Indy, Philly -4.5 on the road at the Giants. You got Tampa Bay -4 at Carolina, Seattle -2.5 on the road at Arizona, and then Miami on Sunday Night Football +3.5 hosting the Bills. Joey, it's time for your Feels Great Baby, your wildest take you feel best about currently. We've been hammering them this whole pod. We've been hammering them the whole season on them being probably the most underachieving team in recent sports memory. You have a hot take yet again about those boys up in Philly.
Yeah. I feel like Philadelphia Eagles lose in the first round or the wild card round if we're talking football, as we are. They're terrible. They're absolutely dead in the water. I'm assuming they're playing Tampa, but even if they played in if they had to play New Orleans in the Dome, good luck with that. I'm not even sure they're going to win this week. I think they will, but like vibes are beyond awful. Yeah, I just Tampa's decent. Tampa's better than what they were last year when Dallas played them. And yeah, I think Philly's toast. I think Philly is so toast.
And it goes to show, I mean, you were saying earlier in the year when they were 10-1 that they were demonstrably worse on both sides of the ball because they lost both coordinators. And we're like, how do they keep doing this? It reminded me a lot of that. I believe it was the 2019 Patriots team where they started the year 8-0. And everybody was like, how do they keep doing this? They just came off of making 4 straight Super Bowls. They won 2 of them. You're like, how do they keep doing this? They did fall off. They fell off so bad that they pulled the plug on Brady after the season after they lost at home to Tennessee in the first round. This feels a lot like that. They were 10-1, and everyone's like, how is this happening? Well, they have fallen back down to earth. They're 1-4 in their last 5 games. They just gave up a 35 burger to Kyler Murray at home in Philly. This team is in an absolute tailspin.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't see it getting better anytime soon because it's, like I said, coaching. I don't think they have anyone in that building who can fix it. And they're not getting any players on defense to fix it because that's their just fatal flaw.
Their linebackers are probably the worst.
Not starters on any team in this league. Borderline NFL linebackers. And their secondary is beyond slow. And just all their money's put in their D-line, and I keep hearing they had like 70-something sacks last year, and now they're like at 41.
And that feels high even. It's like they aren't getting pressure. Kyler Murray had all day to throw last week.
I know Kyler's hard to get on the ground, but they're defensively it's awful. And I think even the bigger issue because they have so much money and talent on offense, I think still offensive line, the weapons. And it just, I saw something that AJ Brown only has like 8 targets beyond like 20 yards, like in the last like 3 months or something. Like he has like 1 catch over 20 yards in the air, like since like week 10 or 11 or something.
They're unable to scheme it so that Hurts can throw the ball deep. Obviously, a lot of people have been pinning it on, he hurt his knee around week 7, week 8, and that's why Hurts is not the same. I just think they don't have the horses, and you've been saying this all year.
They don't. Their roster is not as good as it was last year, and it's not as good as most people thought this year. I thought their roster was better than what it was, but they got old and slow on defense really quick, and offensively, Jalen has regressed without Shane Steichen, and they don't run an offense. Like I saw someone say, they don't coordinate. The offensive coordinator doesn't coordinate anything. He calls like plays, individual like. He doesn't run any scheme. They don't do anything like, like that play came from here. It's like quarterback draw, quarterback power, like
push,
zone, outside zone to like Swift, and then like they throw like a slant to AJ Brown.
It all started with that game. They were 9-1 going into the game against Buffalo. They needed an absolute miracle. I think it was a 62-yard field goal to send it to overtime where they pulled off the win. After that game, everybody said, wow, I mean, this is just the year for Philly, and this is it for Buffalo. Well, since that game, it's been 2 franchises going in completely opposite directions. Buffalo's got a shot at the 2 seed. Philly might be the 5 and might be one and done. So there's Joey's Feels Great Baby take. Philly loses in the first round against the NFC South opponent. Let's close the pod with one more thing. This week is the only week of the entire season where there are more late games than early games. I want more of that in 2024 and beyond. I wanted to broach this topic with you. First of all, week 17 had 10 a.m. games for us out here on the West Coast and 3 1 o'clock games, including one that was 105 and 2 that were 125. So I missed the first 25, 30 minutes of the 105 Seattle game. What are we doing? Like, make all of the games start at 125 so that we let that entire first window complete. No more 105, 405, whatever you want to call those games. And please move some of those early games to the late window. If we had 6 at the start and 6 at the end, that would be just lovely. It's like getting 2 full Sunday windows. Now
we
that I
do get
look at the
naturally
schedule
screwed
this week,
more on the West Coast.
that would be true because you as
They
a
don't-
Niner fan, yeah.
Well, they don't want more. I mean, 4:30 on a Sunday for like the East Coast, like you're having like maybe early dinner and going to bed for work. So I get it. It always too depends like where the games are. Sometimes you just can't put them. I mean, like if there's a lot of East Coast games, like I mean, I guess you could. You still put them at like 4:30.
I just think these.
I like honestly, I love waking up and like having football at 10 a.m. I do. Like,
Well, I don't want what they did. I
don't like what they did this past week. I think 3 is not enough.
Mm-hmm.
I like 4 or 5.
Right. So usually on a normal NFL week, you got 1 Thursday, 1 Sunday night, and 1 Monday. So that leaves 13 games, maybe 11 if there's some buys. I think it should be almost even. It should be like, if there's bye weeks, 6 10 a.m., 5 1:25 p.m. If there's no bye weeks, maybe you do 7 10 a.m. and 6 1:25 p.m. Yes, it would hurt some of these teams that like want to be on the West Coast, and like if you're a Niner fan, you want to know what's going on in the Seattle game, and that's the other one on CBS while you're on Fox. Like there will be more variety in that way. But for those of us who watch Red Zone or who have Sunday Ticket, it's just so much more fun to follow more games at once rather than like the thing that brought this on was last week having only 3 games, including one that started at 105. And basically only one was watchable.
See, I don't watch Red Zone. I'm actually maybe in the minority. I actually kind of hate it. I have Sunday Ticket now since I bought it Black Friday, but like still, even with Sunday Ticket, I only watch like 1 game.
Mm-hmm.
Like
you don't do the multi view.
No, I find it really hard to follow anything. My eyes don't know where to look. So like if the Niners play at 1, the 10 a.m. game, like I'll find like a team, mostly I usually like Seattle, like divisional teams, like how are they doing? Like I watch Philly a lot, Philly, Dallas. If I don't, but like, I mean, what am I going to do? Flip to Carolina, Tampa, like flip to Atlanta? Like what am I going to flip to Chargers, Denver? Like that was one of them. Like, oh, Chargers, Denver, like not a chance. I think I'll go hang out with my son.
Completely unwatchable game. So there was only 2 basically: Pittsburgh, Seattle, and Cincinnati, Kansas City. So you got Mason Rudolph starting one of those and Jake Browning starting the other one of those. Those are your only choices. Like, please move. Not even.
I think they also did want I think they thought that Bengals Chiefs was going to be a much bigger game than it was.
Yeah, when they scheduled that, they probably thought that was Burrow.
They thought that was like damn good, and it was like. They wanted that to kind of be like a Sunday afternoon football, like see, like
game of the week, yeah.
But and it was like, nope.
We could have
Chiefs are overrated, and Joe Burrow died. So,
yeah, Burrow's not walking through that door. But my point is if we're going to make some changes to the NFL in terms of like the way they program things going forward, we've talked about this ad nauseum the last couple of years. Some way we would change NFL studio shows by stop having like 9 people on a pregame show, only have 2 or 3 just so that we can hear them speak and have them make a point rather than just trying to blurt out a word salad.
Like one sentence, it's like, okay, got to go to Michael. All right, let's go to Howie. Let's go to Terry. Let's go to Jimmy. Let's go to Jay Glazer, in and outs, even though we already put him on Twitter like 2 hours ago. Like we already know who's in and out. All right, let's go to like Aaron Andrews' interview, Tom Rinaldi's interview. Let's go to the comedic guy that they have. They used to have what's our guy, Frank Caliendo. He's gone, and then CBS has got. Let's go to Bill Cowher. Let's go to Nate Burleson. Let's go to Phil Simp. We got to go to everybody, and then we got to go to like Tracy Wolfson, like her interview, and it's like way too much.
Can we just get simplicity? That's what I'm saying.
I'm saying Boomer and TJ, like Boomer and Booger now, primetime, like. I'm not saying it's the best show ever, but that type of show, like host and person talking about it.
Mm-hmm. And video of football.
Maybe a third person. Yeah, exactly. Like maybe a third.
Yeah, we don't need
any more than 3. Get off the stage.
It's too much. And my point is those of us who love to consume all kinds of football, I think it's wasted on us to have, like last week, 10 games going on at once. It's just too much.
That's
like,
too much.
It's way too much. I think 8 is the absolute max. I would probably go with 7. So
my
that
favorite Sunday is 2 games here. Before I had Sunday ticket, was like 2 games on at 10, Fox and CBS. The Niner game at 125, and then NBC.
Like a solid Sunday night game. Yeah, that used to be ideal, but now that I'm a red
my
zone
bigger
guy,
issue is never freaking do 2 Monday night games again.
Oh, that's another thing is the 2 Monday night games. This week we got 2 on Saturday. They don't overlap, but there was some talk of doing
I like
2
the 2
Black
that they
Friday
don't overlap.
games. It's too much.
Yeah, the Black Friday. I was like, oh, but I did watch it. I was like, what else am I gonna do?
Also, no more Peacock games. That was really freaking annoying.
Oh, it's coming to the playoffs. I hope. Thank God we skipped that Peacock round in the wild card. But there's a Peacock only playoff game.
Yeah, and don't worry. There's a Nickelodeon slime cast.
It's one of the
them
2 on
too.
Saturday.
Yeah, it's not going to be you because you got to buy. Thank goodness. I can't imagine if the Vikings somehow sneak into the playoffs and they're like, "You're only on Nickelodeon."
Can you imagine game-winning kick being like glitched on a stream on Peacock?
Yeah, or like you can't tell if the kick went in because they dropped the slime from the goalposts. You know, the terrible animation.
Oh, God.
We need to stop with that nonsense and focus on the football.
We have too much technology.
It's gone too far. That's one of our things for next year is we want to see some changes to NFL media. Maybe they can start with the draft, just having a little bit better coverage there, because I think some of the draft coverage is a little bit ridiculous. They'll be like, okay, he had a 4.3 40 and he was great, but let's go over to Tom Rinaldi, who's going to tell us how everyone in his family died. We're like, please just show us the tapes. Tell us wow is going to fit this
team. It makes me think of Schefter's tweet on Dwayne Haskins. Dwayne Haskins, who struggled mightily in the NFL as a quarterback, died.
He was hit by a bus. It's like, no, lead with that. You know, like, again, we need better coverage of the NFL.
They always go like, oh, this guy born in the mud, ate dirt until he was 18. No parents.
He still does not know how to read
and write. But damn, he can throw a football.
Less of that, more of just telling us how this affects the team and whether the team's going to be any good next year. And as I said, let's not do 10 games at once. It's just way too much to keep track of. You obviously lose 2 or 3 games in that shuffle and never see what actually happens in the game. I don't believe they showed the Jacksonville Carolina game for more than 30 seconds on Red Zone, and they shouldn't have, but like I've completely forgot that game even happened. But yeah, 10 is too much. Thanks everybody for listening. We're going to close the pod here. We try to keep these around an hour. I know we've had a few long-winded ones recently. Welcome to the new year. The playoffs are coming next week. We'll be back next week to recap the playoff bracket and basically say, hey, what's the Niners' path to the Super Bowl? Did the Vikings somehow make the playoffs? Who's going to be a dark horse in the AFC or NFC? We'll come up with that next week after we get the bracket finalized. Thanks again for listening to the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast. We will see you again next Monday night.